Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. My guest today is Phillip Swan, Chief Product and Go-to-Market Officer at the AI Solution Group. Phillip is a dynamic, forward-thinking leader renowned for turning complex challenges into strategic opportunities. At the AI Solution Group, Phillip blends customer-centric go-to-market strategies with cutting-edge product development, leadership, and partnerships. His expertise in seamlessly integrating sales, marketing, product, and operations drives business growth and creates customer experiences that progress from initial awareness to long-term advocacy. Phillip, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Thank you, Chad. It's been a while that I've heard about you, and I've been super excited to chat with you today. So I'm super excited.
Thanks. We are really excited to have you on as a guest, and we're going to go for as long as we need to here to wring out all of the information that you've got for our listeners. So let's just dive right in and kick things off. Why don't you tell us about your journey and your experiences into the world of AI and how you've seen it evolve in recent years and what brought you here today?
Sure. So that is a long journey. It's a long, winding road. So I started off life as a mathematician and computer scientist. And so a double major in math and computer science. And back in those days, parallel computing was not a thing, but I was already starting to design parallel computing applications when I was at university, and that captured attention of some professors who were already working in AI. And this is back in the very early 80s, 1981 to be precise. I started programming in a language called Lisp, which was designed out of France, and but we couldn't make AI work. The simple reason, compute power wasn't there and the data wasn't there. And so those are the fundamental changes. But what people have to realize is that the concepts of AI have been around for a very, very long time, almost 100 years, in fact. You can date back to a white paper that Alan Turing wrote in 1934. Before anything else that he did that was just amazing in terms of being the father of modern computing. And then you fast forward to 1950, where he came up with the Turing test and the concept of microprocessors and algorithmic approaches to solving problems. Then to the Dartmouth conference in 1954, where the term artificial intelligence was first really used and adopted. It's an old problem. The thing is like with any old problem, history starts to repeat itself and you start to make things better. So fast forward to where we are today. I've worked in automotive for many years, supplying software, real-time operating systems and other applications. Over 20 years ago, machine learning was a thing in automotive. It was already well established, and companies like BMW and others were forefronts on all of this. And then fast forward, we had this thing called, scraping, and scraping turned into RPA, remote process automation, all precursors to where we are today, but major leaps forward in terms of efficiencies in the enterprise. And then fast forward to where we start getting LLMs coming out in 2019 and starting to become publicly available. You start to see now the public getting involved and the average person getting involved using ChatGPT since November 2022 or whenever that launched. And just the mass adoption, and now you see with what you have with Anthropic and Perplexity and Pi and so many other of these consumer-facing applications, you're seeing the consumer starting to realize this. But with AI comes great responsibility, and as we've seen with many companies like Anthropic, with what they've used, just because you can do something doesn't mean to say you should do it. Like the screen scraping, like applications like we've seen, right? the first when I saw that being announced, I'm going like, has anybody thought about the data protection or the privacy issues in any of this stuff? And so and I grew up in the world of working with large enterprises and large original equipment manufacturers. And as a result of my work at Microsoft, you connected with people. And the thing with working at a company like Microsoft is you get to work with some of the most amazing, bright, intelligent human beings. And that's what we formed at the AI Solution Group. We've formed this coalition of a team where we each have our own superpowers, but collectively there's very little overlap, virtually no overlap between what we each do. So we have this force multiplication effect going on where we're really working and deploying real use cases to our customers. So the driving forward for for AI Solution Group is like we really understand the use cases that will drive AI adoption within clients. So we are very focused on manufacturing. Why is that? Manufacturing has migraine level pain points where companies have hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not going to start naming the companies, right? That have hundreds of millions of dollars of inventory management problems, asset tracking problems, facilities tracking problems, safety issues, theft issues, shrinkage on the floor. There are a number of use cases that for manufacturing that works well. Why does manufacturing align itself so well? It's highly process driven. So with process, you can automate and get efficient, right? And that's really the value. The AI is not about replacing the human. AI is all about the human expertise and then automating the mundane tasks. So you've got that quality and repetition and repeatability and consistency of every time you deploy something. And so that's what we focus in on. We focus in on the migraine level pain point for our customers and solving it in a way, not just with technology. So what makes us unique in the industry is that we bring strategy, technology, and behavior and the intersection to ensure that these AI solutions get deployed and get adopted. You're probably well aware of this statistic, but your audience may not be. But 87% of all AI and data projects do not see the light of day.
Yeah. And I think it's something like 70% even of just ERP implementations never survive, conception. They just die a stillborn death.
And the big reason for that is the disconnect between the business needs and what the CIO or CTO office is doing. And that disconnect is alive and well today. We see it every day with our clients. And so working with the business, pushing them to, they want the solution. And, so it's really about bringing all the stakeholders into alignment. It's not about shoving things down people's throats. It really is a change management exercise because this is a tectonic shift we are witnessing today, right? Mobile disrupted. I was involved in the early days of mobile, and the early days of mobile transformed people's lives, right? Because you were back in the day, I was literally carrying a bag as a sales guy after I stopped being engineering. I didn't have a cell phone back in those days because it didn't exist.
Right.
So I was literally going into hotels with a credit card and making phone calls from one of those banks of phones in a hotel, right? That's how I got my job and still being able to be out in front of customers. Then I got one of the first cell phones out there, which was one of those transformer boxes that you put in the box. Some people might be old enough to remember that, right? And I had then one of the first headsets that literally burned my ear. So God knows what damage that's doing with my brain, right? Same thing with the internet. I was in the early days of the internet, voice over IP. We did a company that we sold to Texas Instruments we were the infrastructure of voice over IP. Then you see the internet, and then you see now artificial intelligence. And the thing that artificial intelligence is doing that like mobile did is it's going to help communities. And and it's going to, as long as we make it accessible to everybody on the planet, right? So it's not just for the Western countries, or it's like people in Africa can actually leverage it. And how do you make people accessible? But it's got to be safe. It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be ethical. It's got to be good, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that means you've got to get the explainability. You've got to get the transparency. You've got to get the observability. You've got to get all of that in place so that people can actually trust it, because we have this little thing called hallucination, right? Which is, again, alive and well, but there are ways to mitigate hallucination. Some really great ways. Big hint for your audience: just write these 3 words in front of every prompt. Do not hallucinate. If you just write that in front of your prompt, you will narrow the model down significantly enough that you reduce hallucination by about 95% just by putting those words in. It's crazy. It's just a simple hack there. But hallucination is a very real thing. Shadow AI is a very real thing as well, which is because now all of a sudden within companies, you've got your valuable intellectual property getting out into the open. Why? Because somebody in your company's written a prompt saying, hey, here's my source code for this mobile operating system. That Samsung does have their source code out in the wild now as a result of somebody doing this. Shadow AI is real. So you've got to really ensure you've got governance in place. I
Mm-hmm.
know this sounds all big company-esque, correct, but if you don't do this, it doesn't have to be heavyweight, but it needs to be responsible. It needs to be safe. It needs to be good for people, good for the planet.
I think you covered about 35 different points, Philip, just now that we could probably drill down and have an in-depth conversation on any one of those. I want to back up to 2 things. Initially, I want to back up to the term shadow AI, because we're starting to hear that more and more, and I'm not sure that many of our listeners are familiar with what that means, right? We're familiar with shadow IT and the idea that that has brought about in the last 25, 30 years, but define for us what you mean when you say shadow AI.
Shadow AI is where you've got proprietary company information
Mm-hmm.
being released into the wild because of uh, unmonitored, unregulated. I'm using terms that probably make people squirm, but it really it's careless use of your intellectual property getting out into the wild. Now there are ways to strongly mitigate this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having your own instance of OpenAI on Azure, as an example, is a good way of getting around this. There are several ways, but the point is, you do not want your staff, your teams, you want them using AI to help them augment themselves, but you want them to do it in a way that's not going to expose your data, your intellectual property out to your competition in the marketplace. That's really what shadow AI is, in simple terms.
I think that that is a very succinct, compact definition. What is a piece of advice that you would give organizations in terms of how to protect themselves from the dangers of shadow AI? What are some best practices around data hygiene and some of the things that you just highlighted a moment ago?
So, first of all, it's the infrastructure in which you're using, how you're using AI within the company, right? Is really understand. Do you go out and use ChatGPT or Anthropic or any of these other applications out there and let your teams use them,
Mm-hmm.
or do you bring it in house and control it within the confines of your security posture and that? And it's the latter that I recommend people doing, and then you enforce that policy with your team. You're using our instance of OpenAI to get your answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that way you are protecting yourself, because it's not training the model, it's not getting out to your competition. It's you now have this, your security posture is that much better as a result, because otherwise it's an attack surface for you from a security standpoint. So that's one aspect. A second one is to have a data and AI governance, whether it's a board or whether it's a document or mixture of both,
Mm-hmm.
where there's multiple stakeholders from the different parts of the organization that, hey, this is how we're going to use it, and they enforce it with their respective organizations. It becomes yet another change management exercise to ensure that, I guess, another best practice, ensure you've got change management integrated into it, into your AI solution, because otherwise it's going to have sporadic adoption and could be potentially reputationally damaging to your brand and your customer.
Hmm. I love the fact that you're linking AI and digital transformation or change management together, because I think too often that goes unremarked upon. And I'd be interested, what have you seen and what are some of the practices that you recommend in terms of change management, digital transformation? Do you tend to refer to frameworks like ADKAR? What typically okay, go for it.
Oh man, you're talking my language now. So
And
they're
we should
actually
probably define what ADKAR is too, because I'm throwing vernacular around here that I don't know everybody. So go ahead as part of that, please, Philip.
so we looked at multiple frameworks. So let me rewind about 20 years ago.
Sure.
Um, one of we did some. I wasn't involved with this personally. It was our CEO and a couple of others on our team ran what was called patterns and practices at Microsoft. And what patterns and practices was is that it got .NET adopted globally as as a natural path within IT. And the so we've taken we understand. So what we do is we harvest patterns, right?
Hmm.
That is our secret sauce, right? We see what clients are doing, we harvest patterns, and and we build products. So this goes back to your question of frameworks. So we build products using frameworks, right?
Hmm.
And the frameworks we've had to build ourselves, right? The reason is there was nothing out there that gave us the responsible side of things. So we've designed our own internal frameworks, which we are going to publish.
Hmm.
And the we've got one framework around. So we are very forward thinking in terms of how we're going there. So we are literally building products on quicksand right now because things are changing so quickly.
Yes.
And and so I've had to rethink how we build products significantly, right? Because
Hmm.
it is quicksand. So we're jumping the gun and really focusing on agents, right?
Mm.
And
I don't think you're
agents.
jumping the gun at all, or the gun at all. I think that's a smart play, just from where I'm standing. I sorry to interrupt you there, but I think that that's an important point. We're recording this session the end of 2024, and I have every expectation that we are going to start to see agents rolled out into the real world here very, very soon. So,
Correct.
yeah, go ahead. You're not jumping the gun at all, sir.
So, well, when you talk to our clients, we are right. One of my co-founders, his name is Alistair Lowe Norris, and he was former change, you know, chief change officer at Microsoft.
Hmm.
He he equates it to like the movie The Martian, right? It's like we know the destination, but that's step 463. We're at step number 3, and that's
Right.
really where our clients are, right?
Yeah.
So we're building solutions today for our clients that
Hmm.
are agentic in nature, but but to them it's just blowing their mind up, right? It's
Yeah.
just but it's not going to be long, to your point, whether it's 3 months or 6 months,
Right.
that there's going to be this explosion because of what companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and others are going to be releasing to market. Little spoiler alert: AGI, artificial general intelligence, is going to be real within 6 months. I firmly, I've put a stake in the ground on that one.
Hmm.
It's not because I know anything; just I just see observing how things are going.
Sure.
And so when we look at our frameworks, back to the framework question, we've built frameworks around agents. We've built frameworks, a framework around change, around change management. So one of our founders is, he's a change management guru, right? So we've incorporated, another one is a business strategy guru, right? And we're just really focusing in on how we fully integrate everything into a single framework, right? And that's what we're building right now, is that framework, is that overall framework where companies can not only just see the patterns and practice, the patterns to do this, but how can they actually implement something that will get adopted across their organization
Hmm.
safely.
Yeah, safely is key, and I think that that is probably one of the things that most folks would really like to know what are the three things. So I'm just arbitrarily picking a number here, but what are the three things that an organization can do to safely implement some of what we're talking about here?
First thing is, are you ready? Right
Yeah.
now, ready is a big loaded word here, right?
Mm,
So there's multiple things. So first of all, do you have the support of the C-suite and the board to do
right.
this? If you don't, get it, because you have to have everybody on board. This is tectonic in nature, the
Mm,
shift that we are seeing, right? So
mhm,
it's not just this simple, oh, we've got this nice, cool tech now. This is not it. This is impacting how we live. This
yeah.
is impacting how we work. This is impacting how we relate to our customers, our team members, and everything else.
Mhm,
So it's about the augmenting the human with artificial intelligence. So when we're looking at our customers and their pain points, it really comes back to the solving the big problems that they haven't been able to solve yet with technology. And
mhm,
you know we're headlong focused on manufacturing because it is ripe right now with
mhm,
Industry 4.0 and all of the big problems that we're seeing with the big manufacturers out there that they've got. Um, Boeing's been in the news. All these companies have been in the news for all different reasons. They have big problems to solve, and it's about doing it in a way that is not going to hurt them reputationally
mhm,
and in a way that's not going to hurt them financially. It's only going to improve their financial results. And the third part is the responsibility to your team members that you're not actually doing them out of a job. You are augmenting them so they get to work on their superpowers versus on the mundane tasks that are just energy draining. We all have them, whether it's email, whether it's CRM, whether it's just like, God, I gotta do this, right?
yeah.
Whereas if you had an agent that did it, you're off doing the stuff that you really enjoy doing, right?
Mhm,
And for me, that's building product, it's talking to customers, building more product that needs for customers, right? So we have this strategy of we're building our products with our customers.
mhm,
So what does that really mean? Is I'm not going to tell you the product that we're building because we haven't released that to market, but it's like we are building stuff that customers want. How do we know this? Because the engagements that we have with our customers tell us that.
mhm. I love the fact that you're focused in on manufacturing. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on as a guest here today, because I think manufacturing, especially in the middle market space, where we're not talking about a Boeing, maybe we're talking about a 250 or 500 million dollar, family held or closely held corporation that's doing manufacturing. I think that there's often a lack of understanding about what AI can bring to the table,
Correct.
and we're seeing also a proliferation, an absolute explosion in the amount of sensors and the amount of data, the sheer fire hose like volume of data that manufacturers, even a smaller manufacturer, are dealing with right now, makes them, to your point, ripe for AI
Yes.
solutions. So,
Correct. You're absolutely right. And the other point in especially for these smaller companies, like what is the use case that's going to hit me? So like for,
yeah.
it's got to be around, you start off around efficiency, right? How do you become more efficient?
Hmm.
And when you become more efficient, you're driving your bottom line, right? You may not
Hmm.
be driving your top line, but you're definitely driving your bottom line.
Hmm.
And then you start thinking about, okay, so how can I start be driving my top line with AI, right? Because it's easy to wrap your head around, okay, I'm manufacturing these 100,000 SKUs or parts or whatever. Each one has a unique serial number. I need to know where each serial number is in its life cycle, whether it's being shipped, whether it's actually installed, is it in operation, what's the time to failure, predictive maintenance, all of those things. Because when it comes to manufacturing, every minute of factory downtime costs a fortune,
Yep.
right? And it's a high percentage of that company's revenue. So you don't want unpredictable downtime, right?
Right.
And so it's that is a problem they can grasp. It's not this ethereal idea of like, I'm going to go and capture 50 new customers in the next 20 days by using AI. No, I'm going to save $30 million out of a $100 million problem by doing this thing, and it's going to cost me a fraction of $30 million to build it and operate it. So that's a no-brainer return of investment. That's a migraine headache, right? Because you save $30 million out of $100 million, your board's going to love you.
Absolutely. And I think, you just touched on something that is near and dear to my heart, because I find that mindset regarding AI adoption falls into predominantly two, but there are three levels, I think. One is we're going to drive cost, right? We're going to save some dollars here by using AI. The second level up, which is where you focused on, is efficiency, right? So we're going to drive significant efficiencies in the organization through the deployment and development of AI solutions. And then the top level that I don't think a lot of folks are at yet is novelty. We're going to manufacture, you said 100,000 SKUs. We're going to manufacture 25,000 of our SKUs in a completely different way, or we're going to go in a different direction. And I'm bringing this up because I think that we are also on the cusp of seeing some very novel solutions in deployment with AI. So let's stick with the factory example. What if we had, and you talked about downtime, but there's also turn time when we have to reset machines and we have to feed materials. Correct. And do things like that. What if we had an AI system, and I don't think we're far off from being able to do this, that had access to the video feeds on the factory floor? And, okay, you see where I'm going with this.
Oh, funny you should mention that. That's one of our projects, right? So,
I had, and full disclaimer, I had no inside information. So very interesting. Can you speak about that project at all?
I can't see who the client is,
okay,
for obvious reasons. But they have a massive problem, and it's actually a threefold problem. They are a consumer products company. They do their manufacturing between the US and Europe, and distribute globally. They on their factory they have approximately 24 manufacturing floors, plants. Yes, not approximately, it's 24. And they have issues around death and injury. They have issues around product shrinkage, and they have issues around turn times. So those are three issues. Their number one pain point, because of who they are, is a well-known name, and you would know them if I told you, is that if their intellectual property gets out into the open, it costs them tens of millions of dollars. And it's a huge pain point, and it happens quite regularly, unfortunately. So they've worked as far as they can go from a change management perspective to change the culture from a safety culture. That has happened, but it's only gotten them so far. So this now becomes a computer vision problem, and a computer vision problem using AI at the edge to really understand suspicious behavior on the factory floor and dangerous behavior on the factory floor, so that you can prevent an accident from happening before it happens. So somebody losing a limb, or worse yet, dying, right? As a result, and it does happen. And the other aspect is, having product disappear off of there and suddenly turn up on social media, and suddenly it's just wiped, almost $100 million off of the table because of that one week, right? So it's a very real problem. And so to answer your question, it's active and it's real, and we're working it.
See, there you go. We are not far off from some previously what would have been considered science fiction-esque solutions. And I think you just highlighted a couple things, and I want to call out one in particular because I hear an awful lot of pushback from folks about AI. And when in the examples that you just gave, in the three pain points, one of them was employee safety. And yes. I don't think a lot of folks that aren't in a manufacturing or a heavy industry environment appreciate how dangerous a lot of these occupations are, even with all the safety protocols. And there's this idea out there, I think, that, well, the company just wants to drive the bottom line. They want more efficiency. Yes, they do want that, but they also want everybody to go home at the end of every day. And if a solution like what you are working on can help every employee go home to their loved ones, That's a solution that I would buy as an owner.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's
Yep.
exactly right. And if you can reduce shrinkage too as a
Yes.
result, and security threats as a result, um, you know, you know, this company literally spends high seven figures on physical security in their facilities just to
Hmm.
prevent theft, and it's not
Hmm.
working, right?
Wow.
And so they want to be able to not eliminate, but vastly reduce this and rely on technology to actually help them. But there is a huge change management concept on this. Data protection, data privacy, as you can imagine, is going to be a massive issue for
Hmm.
them, right? And is a massive issue for them. So protecting against that. And so we build enterprise grade solutions. That's what we do, right? So we factor all of this stuff into the equation, right? And we're doing this. So how we work is that we go in and do a very quick workshop with them to not only identify the work case, but really get that readiness back to the readiness question, right?
Hmm.
Which is, what do you need to, have you got a problem that needs solving? Is it a big enough problem? Because if it's not a big enough problem, I wouldn't waste your time, right?
Right.
Because it's just hype. We're in this hype cycle right now. You want something that's real, where you can go back and like, I can point to this and I just improved our bottom line by 30% by doing this one thing. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, right? Who's not a hero for doing that? And all of a sudden now, well, it's AI doing it. And they're like, oh, so we're not worried about the data protection. No, because we got this covered. Oh, we're not worried about physical security. No, we've got that covered. It's just like it's all the risk mitigations that you've got to put in place. So you're
Hmm.
not doing silly stuff with the application. Like, it's not silly, but it's like, go and find me 500 restaurants that sell this my favorite kind of food, right? Right. Don't care about that,
Right.
right? I care about solving real world problems with this.
Hmm. I want to return to something that you started out with early on in our conversation, and you talked about building these solutions on quicksand. And beyond the need for good data hygiene and structuring an appropriate data lake, how are some of the ways that you're working through building these solutions, understanding that the fundamental tech and a lot of what we're talking about when we throw about the term AI is changing so very rapidly? How are you future proofing some of what you're creating?
So what we're doing is that we've architected our solution in such a way that we've got ultimate flexibility. I'm not going to go share more details than that, because for obvious reasons, this is part of our
Understandable.
secret sauce.
Sure.
But the um, the key thing is like, are you, are you solving the problem in a way that's good for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can be adopted by the business. So we start getting into customer experience and user experience here as well, right? So it's not just about data cleanliness and readiness. It's also about preparing the organization for change. So presenting to the C-suite, right? This is what the capabilities of it. Let's give you a reality check, right? So 15 minutes, 30 minutes max, we're going to give you a complete baselining of where we are. So somebody will go like, oh, okay, I get it now. This is how it applies to me and my business and everything else. Got it. Okay, we're now understanding. So now the conversation changes now to, okay, what's the outcome that you want? And other people's might phrase this as like, what future are you solving for? Right. And that's typically my first question to people, is like, what future are you solving for?
Mm-hmm.
Because then when you've got that, you can work back. Right. And that's what it is. It's like, growing up in Scotland, right, and we had this kids' parties. Like when I was 5 years old, there was the old Punch and Judy show where you have the magician, the old, the old thing, like, and they'd come around like, who wants to go to the moon? And you have 30 kids all going like, me, 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 me. You're like, how are we going to get there? And everybody goes, I don't know, but we'll figure it out, right? And that's where we are. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's why we're different is that we think of the possible, not of the impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds a little quirky, right? Because agents are starting to become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your question of how we're building, so we're doing these architectural spikes right now to solve the complex problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? For agents, as an example, how do agents talk to each other,
Hmm.
right? Agent to agent communication. I don't know, right? Let's go and figure it out,
Yep.
right? It's like, now, now what happens when you group your family of agents together, right, to perform a more complex task? Well, I don't know, but let's figure that out, right? So we've gone through and did the hard part, and like building real product, like solving really hard problems,
Hmm.
so that for the future, so it's getting back to harvesting those patterns, so that when things become get accelerated, which they will within the next 6 months, we're ahead of the curve,
Hmm.
and we're ready for our customers, and our customers are seeing this, so that we're our point to go to, that we're not this esoteric idea company. It's like we've got the hard experience, we've got the scars on our back already on all of this stuff. So we're going to be of real value to you, right? So it's all about how we architect it, and we've got some of the most amazing people. So one of the people on our team is actually, his name is Spencer Bentley, and Spencer is the head of OpenAI's developer forum, the global. So so he sees stuff, like, obviously he can't talk about a lot of under NDA to us, even so we're very clear on that. But it's just like he sees so many interesting things, like that, that he can talk about and can share. So that, building community is important. So an important part of this chat is going to be, the community that we build around responsible AI,
Hmm.
and and really, really driving that sense of community, both from business decision makers to software engineers to compliance officers to, developers. It's, DevSecOps people to whomever, right?
Hmm.
And so everybody's along in the journey, along in the journey. So part of the readiness is are you ready for change?
Hmm.
Right. So back to that, and which is where the change management the change management expertise comes in for
Hmm.
us.
Well, and I love that your question, and I might butcher the exact language, but it was essentially, what future are you building towards? And that's very Stephen Covey 101, start with the end in mind. And I think that being able to reverse engineer, but also couple that future that you're building towards with a very wide and broad sense of imagination is absolutely key, because we are in very uncharted territory right now with a lot of the capabilities of these different systems. And one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, since you've got exposure to a lot of the different models that are out there, are what's something that you've been surprised about in terms of the capabilities of the different models that you're seeing that you didn't expect?
So the biggest change for me was getting early access to O1 Preview.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to Spencer for getting me that, right? That's how I got it.
I'm sure he got a
uh,
nice bottle of wine, right?
yeah, yeah,
As a
well,
thank
for
you
him,
gift.
it's exactly right. And so what how I look at O1 Preview
Mm-hmm.
is that it is so much smarter than 4.0 for Omni, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you an example. I use O1 Preview like I would use a research assistant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I give it the hard problems to solve. You only get 50 prompts a week,
Right.
right? Um, and so I make the most of it. And so I use O1 Preview to do some of the hard, complex thinking that would normally take me, several hours to do. It does it in seconds. The longest one I've had is 10 minutes. It was thought for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty extraordinary what it did actually in those 10 minutes. And it was, but that's been my biggest surprise, just like how much closer that O1 and O1 Preview and what will ultimately be O1 is what's training, Orion or GPT-5,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what's arguably AGI, right?
Right.
And it's just the level of smartness that is out there. So O1 Preview is at least 100 times more intelligent than 4.0 was
Mm-hmm.
or is,
Mm-hmm.
but just in different ways. So I use it in different ways. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. I think that there's an awful lot of folks, and we're throwing different models around here. So we're talking about the OpenAI ChatGPT O1 preview model. It can get a little confusing if you're not working with the tech every day. One of the questions that often comes up, and actually it's less of a question, more of a pushback. I hear this especially from folks in the financial sector, right? They're talking about compute resource limitations and some of the limitations that they expect that we're going to run up against. What's your take on that?
It's very real. There's no question about it. So this is public information. Microsoft is investing between 128 and $200 billion in next gen AI data centers over the next 3 years. So they've clearly got to make up for that investment, right? So there's a big revenue gap for them that they have to close, right? So this is where we come in, because we help get these back to the 87% of these projects don't get seen into production. We get them into production. We get them into acceptance by the customer, so they can actually show these things working. So it's alleviating the C-level angst that is there around AI, because they're going like, is it going to damage my brand? Is it going to do, what is it going to do? And then with a lot of these especially the larger manufacturing companies like automotive or others, right? You've got your fiefdoms, right? So you're going like, yeah, you're not coming near my business with this stuff. Yeah, I don't trust it, right? You'll give me spanners and screwdrivers and bolts and stuff. I'm happy, but this thing called artificial intelligence, I don't know about this, right? So it's getting back to the change management, getting people to recognize it's like, this is about making you more efficient and improving your results, the amazing work that you're doing. So, I keep going back to, when we're talking to clients every day, it's like, help me with the use case, right? Help me, establish a foothold, and drive this forward, right? So, it's being consultative, right? Being customer-centric. We are customer obsessed, right? We don't wake up in the morning without thinking about our customers. We don't go to bed at night without thinking about our customers. And I mean that, right? And it's not just me responsible for product and go to market. It's everybody in the company, from our CEO on down. Our COO as well. He's a finance and ops guy, but he is customer obsessed, customer centric. Like, so it's about delivering that ROI back to our customers, so that they can actually have tangible proof. Go like, oh, we did this once, we're going to do this again and again and again. What we are building is a factory, is an AI factory. So, which gives us repeatability, scalability, and quality, because you're now talking about repeatable processes, right? And doing this, even though you're going through workshops and each engagement is different, because each use case is subtly different they might fall under a general use case, but each one has got its own nuances and everything else. So it's a package deal to make sure that this thing scales into the organization, so that you're not just developing something and just goes and sits in the shelf, right? And so that's
I really enjoy the way that you just framed that right now in terms of replicable processes and factory, because anybody that's used even the off-the-shelf models, you get wildly varying results if you're not very specific with your instruction set and the guardrails and the meta prompts, and if you're using XML, whatever. And I think that's a pain point and a concern for a lot of C-suite executives that have used this. They're like, okay, well, I wrote a blog with this, and then I gave it the same prompt, and it wrote something totally different. So how do we ensure that continuity? And yeah, you're laughing, right? That's often the approach.
I'm laughing. I just did this morning, so I'm laughing because I'm going like, are you sure you're not watching me? it's exactly, because I'm testing out what from one of the spikes we're doing right now, and this I can disclose. It's like, okay, let's create that, a little project where it's like multiple agents, where just I can write my blogs and I can get the post side of the blogs and everything else, and and we're seeing such varying results right now, right? So it's crazy.
It really is. So if you're figuring out a way to put those guardrails in place and make the process repeatable, replicable, and scalable, that is a very valuable solution. we've been talking here for coming up on an hour, so we probably should land the plane here fairly quickly. What else do you wish that C-suite executives knew about AI? When you talked earlier in our conversation about coming in and needing to do some fundamental education, things like that, what is something that would make your job easier as someone that's coming in offering solutions if C-suite knew X, right? What would X be?
Well, X needs to be honest with yourself what your migraine pain is. Where does it
Mm-hmm.
exist in your organization? And don't focus on anything else that's not, and then figure out how can I break this problem down into manageable chunks. Back to that old expression, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's how do you break, so this is part of the readiness, right? Ensuring that you've worked through with all the stakeholders, that you've got complete alignment. Yes, this is the problem we're going to go and solve. Now let us go and solve it, and we're going to show you how we're going to solve it. We're going to keep you, completely involved in the loop. So we're teaching you how to fish, right? So we don't want to be doing this long term in terms of, we're not a consulting organization, right? We're a products company with
Mm-hmm.
services. And, and because we've recognized the need that having the technology by itself is not enough. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
have the strategy behind it, and you've got to have the behavior behind it, right? So strategy gets worked at the C-suite and the business, the business decision makers level. And really, before you start writing a single line of code about figure out, is this even possible? Is this even realistic? Right? And very quickly narrow in on the use case that will prove something that is realistic, because I will guarantee you that your idea of the use case that you think up first is going to be not the one you're going to end up with, because we're going to iterate, and suddenly the light bulbs go on and go like, yeah, it's that, right? And that's what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
we've seen some amazing results.
Fantastic. I love that, and I think that is a great place to end our conversation, because that's really solid advice that's going to help organizational leaders avoid from chasing shiny objects and really focus in on driving value with what is, in my opinion, and clearly yours as well, a fundamentally disruptive and transformative technology. So thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. This was just wonderful. For our listeners that want to learn more about you and the work of your organization, or if they just want to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to do that, to reach me, the best way is on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. It's Phillip, Phillip -SWAN, Swan, like the word. So connect with me, DM me. I will respond. It may not be in real time, but I will get back to you, within a few hours. The other way to our website is the AI Solution Group.ai. So THEAISOLUTIONGROUP.ai. And and follow us, our company page on LinkedIn as well. We post on that. So I continually write. I do a weekly newsletter called the Go-to-Market Edge. Subscribe to that on my LinkedIn profile, and you'll get to see a whole bunch of stuff. That's the easiest way.
Perfect. Phillip, I hope that we can have you back on the show here maybe in 25, and when your solutions that you're not quite able to talk about yet are out in the marketplace, maybe we can dig into them a little bit more. I think that'd be
I would
fantastic.
welcome that opportunity, Chad. So thank you for that. I would welcome that. It's been great chatting with you.
Perfect. Same here. I appreciated our time together. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into AI for the C-Suite, where we're committed to helping middle market leaders thrive during the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on all the socials, and visit our site, aiforthec-suite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization. And until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.